Bueno, muy buenas tardes a todas las personas que se empiezan a unir el día de hoy, 20 de noviembre del 2025, a esta sesión informativa un poco diferente a las que habitualmente solemos tener en Colfuturo. Como sabrán, los webinars que Colfuturo realiza siempre son con universidades de convenio, particularmente en este caso, desafortunadamente, no tenemos aún un convenio con la Universidad de Cambridge. Sin embargo, Ana María, representante de esta universidad, en este momento nos está abriendo el espacio para que podamos hablar acerca de esta institución tan reconocida a nivel mundial, para que ella nos pueda contar temas relacionados al proceso de solicitud de admisión de posgrados en Cambridge, para los requisitos de admisión para que solicitarán para los estudiantes colombianos en específico, plazos de solicitud, becas y pues cualquier otra oportunidad de financiación disponible para todos los colombianos y las colombianas que deseen hacer su sueño realidad en cuanto a ir a estudiar en el exterior, específicamente en esta universidad con tanto prestigio. Entonces, la idea es que ustedes puedan aprovechar este espacio al máximo, que puedan dirigir a Ana María todas las preguntas que tengan en mente al respecto sobre la universidad, sobre los procesos de admisión, sobre las opciones de financiación. Ella con muchísimo gusto nos va a ayudar a resolverlas. Pueden dejar sus inquietudes a través del cajón de Q&A. Y bueno, pues sin más preámbulos, le doy la palabra a Ana María. Ana María, thank you so much for being here today with COLFUTURO. The stage is yours.
Muchas gracias, Karen. Hola a todos. I'm going to speak in English just because, despite my name, I'm Romanian. So I'm going to have this presentation in English. I hope that is okay. I am still working on my Spanish. But thank you so much, Karen, for that introduction and for helping us with this session tonight as well. It's really exciting to be here with you all and be able to share a bit more about the University of Cambridge. Like Karen mentioned, we don't have an actual partnership with COLFUTURO at the moment. However, that doesn't mean you cannot apply for the University of Cambridge and receive COLFUTURO funding and support. So we hope you'll be taking that into consideration. And like Karen mentioned, I will be talking about any other scholarship opportunities and funding opportunities as well, specifically for you as Colombian students. So hopefully that will be useful. In terms of my role and what I'm here to do. I work for the University of Cambridge. I was actually an international student myself, coming from Romania. I did my undergraduate and my master's degree in the UK, so I have a bit of experience with the whole process and then my actual degrees in the UK. But now I work for the University of Cambridge, and my role is to support you, people such as yourselves, prospective applicants, with information, advice, and guidance on the application process, timelines, funding, scholarships, and so on. So that's why I'm here tonight. Well, I say tonight because for me it's 10 p.m. I know for you it's probably 5 p.m., isn't it? So, yes, we'll spend the next half an hour to 1 hour together, and I'm very happy to receive your questions at the end of the presentation too, like Karen mentioned. So this is what we're going to cover today. But before we begin, if you have your phones with you, I would encourage you to scan the QR code if you want to receive like a summary of what I'm going to talk to you about today. It's going to be instant. As soon as you sign up, you'll get an email in your inbox with some quick links and some useful information. So if you want to have that, I do encourage you to scan that QR code and fill in the form. It literally takes 1 minute. It's just about your name, email, and a couple of other questions. You might be on your phones. I'm not sure. If you are, I'm going to put the link in the chat. Hopefully, I'll be able to do that. So you can actually use the link if you can't scan the QR code in case you are on your phone. So while you're doing this, I'm going to tell you a bit more about what I'm going to present about tonight or this afternoon. I'm going to tell you a bit more about postgraduate study in the UK, then tell you a bit more about Cambridge Life, the Cambridge postgraduate application process, and then the fun bit, the fees and funding that you might want to hear about. I have a few other useful links for you, and then we'll move on to the Q&A section. So I hope that sounds okay. I hope you'll be able to sign up to this form, the QR code you can see on the screen or the link in the chat. And I'm going to proceed with the first section of this presentation. So you might already know that in the UK, they have this, after high school, they'll go to a university and they call this a bachelor's degree, an undergraduate degree. And this usually takes about 3 years or maybe 4 years. It depends on the program or whether students do like a placement year or a year abroad and so on. Once students in the UK complete this bachelor's degree, then they go on to do a master's degree. And you might already know by now that in the UK, master's programs are just 1 year long. So they are much shorter than other parts of the world, quite condensed um, and intensive. But that also means that you can save money in terms of doing your master's for 1 year rather than 2 years. And then after that master's program, some students might decide to do a PhD or a doctorado. That's 3 years or 4 years in length. I mean, that's the usual progression. So this is just kind of a quick summary of how things work. Unfortunately, I'm not in a physical room with you right now to ask you to raise your hands to see how many of you want to study a master's, how many of you want to study a PhD. So I'll be talking a bit about both. In terms of the master's study, you might have seen there is a range of course names available depending on the institution, depending on the program, and that can be a bit confusing. So you can see at Cambridge, most of our programs would be MPhils, which stands for Masters of Philosophy. It's just the title of the masters. It doesn't mean you'll study philosophy, it's just the title of the masters. At other universities, you might see an MA, which stands for Masters of Arts, or an MSc, which stands for Masters of Science. So this is just to let you know these are just the abbreviations of the title or of the masters, so you don't need to be too confused or worry about that. What you do need to know is the difference between certain types of masters. And you might already know by now that in the UK there are taught masters. So that means there's quite a significant chunk of time dedicated to teaching. So you'll be there with the professor teaching you in lectures, in seminars. So you'll have coursework, you'll have essays to prepare and all of that. But then you also have a dissertation at the end of your masters to prepare. But then there are also the research masters, and that means there is no teaching component. You don't have to sit through lectures if you don't want to. It's not compulsory. You don't have that element. You just spend the whole year of your master's doing that dissertation. It will be a you'll be a longer dissertation than the taught master's dissertation, but you spend the whole year doing that research. There can also be a combination of these two. But like I said, in the UK, the master's programs are between 9 months and 1 year long, full time. These are not graded on a scale, so you either get the pass, merit, or distinction. Distinction being the highest mark you can get. Usually, this is a qualification required for doctoral study. However, some departments might accept you for doctoral study for a PhD without having a master's, but that depends on your experience and it depends on the department as well. But just so you know, there might be some occasions when that happens. Um, of course, a lot of sectors now expect you to have a master's degree in addition to your bachelor's degree. But just so you know, UK master's degrees are globally recognized, and especially masters from the University of Cambridge. You'll have a great advantage in the employability world with such a qualification. Some of you here today, or some of you watching this recording, might be interested in a PhD. Maybe you already have a master's, maybe you want to go straight to a PhD. You will probably know that you need a research proposal in most cases to apply for a PhD, or there must be a predefined project you apply to, and these usually have to uh, these proposals or the projects have to contribute to the field of study to find a gap in the literature or in the knowledge, and you'll have to work throughout your PhD to develop that knowledge and bring something, contribute to your field of study. For a PhD, you will be working with a supervisor, so you will be guided throughout those 3 or 4 years. Sometimes you might find masters integrated with a PhD, so you are accepted to a master's and then you go straight to a PhD without having to make another application. So you can find that combination too. The dissertation you're expecting to make to write for a PhD is usually around 80,000 words. So that's quite a long dissertation, but obviously you have 3 to 4 years to complete that. And just to say, I'll be talking a lot about the funding available in the funding and fees section. But if you're thinking of a PhD, program in the UK and at Cambridge, funding might be available from UK research councils too. So in addition to all the funding I'll be telling you about, certain UK research councils will have funding for international students. So that applies to you as Colombian applicants as well. And this very quick slide, I'm just going to give you some examples of those titles and qualification examples specifically for Cambridge. Like I said, most of our masters would be Masters of Philosophy, so the MPhils, either by advanced study, that's with the teaching element, so it's a taught masters, or by dissertation, which is the research masters I was telling you about. And then the other very popular degree qualification type example is the Doctor of Philosophy, the PhD. But of course, you can find other abbreviations like the MBA, which is the Masters of Business Administration, or Master of Law, and so on, Master of Architecture, and so on. Just to say that if you might not consider a full degree at Cambridge, like a master's or a PhD, we also have summer programs. These are offered by the Professional and Continuing Education Institute, and credit may be given from your home institution. So this is something to look into in case you might not be quite convinced you want to do a full degree, master's or PhD at Cambridge. Right, so this is very briefly about postgraduate study in the UK. I'm going to talk to you a bit more about Cambridge. So again, I can't see all of you, we're not in a physical room. I can't ask you whether you've been to Cambridge before, but I'm trying to take you on a route now virtually, and explain a bit about Cambridge and the location, and what's different at Cambridge compared to other UK universities. So in the photo, you can see two of our colleges, and I'll explain what the college is in a second. You have the King's College in the background, and then in the foreground here, we have Trinity College as well. So as you can see, it's quite a historical town. It's quite green. It's very safe as well. So it's a really lovely place to live in and to study. You probably already know by now that we are very highly ranked academically. We have a very high quality of teaching. And no matter what subject you might be choosing at Cambridge, you will be taught by world-leading experts in that field. We have over 300 postgraduate courses. I'll give you the QR code for the course database in a minute. But our academic community is formed of over 11,000 postgraduate students. But about 60% of these are international, coming from over 130 countries, and including Colombia, including Latin America. We even have a very vibrant Colombian society, Latin American society, and many other societies, as you can see on the screen, more than 500 clubs and societies you can get involved in, as well as music, theater, sports. So there's much more to do than your degree here at the University of Cambridge. And it's a very welcoming, multicultural environment, very supportive environment too. What's different at Cambridge compared to other UK universities is the collegiate system. So we have a system of 31 colleges. Some of these are women-only colleges, some of these are mature students colleges, some of these are postgraduate-only colleges. So there are some differences, but mainly they are places where scholars live together, so they provide accommodation, dine together, they provide places to eat, formal dinners as well with the gowns. They also provide additional support in addition to your department or to the central university services as well. So it's really a vibrant system of support for university students that other universities don't offer. We at Cambridge, we are, you have the small town feel like you've seen from the photos and everything, but you're not far from London. So you'll have those large city opportunities. It's only 50 minutes by train from London. So it's quite close, very well connected to the airports nearby, and then you can definitely easily explore the UK or Europe while you'll be at Cambridge as well. And you might be wondering actually about career support and prospects. We do have career service here. You'll have life membership of this career service, so you'll be supported even after you graduate. And they have specialist advisors, they have one-to-one consultations, skill sessions, and lots of careers events as well. We are actually ranked fifth in the world for employer reputation. So, like I was saying, if you get a degree from the University of Cambridge, you'll be well sought after by employers worldwide. And you also might be wondering, what am I going to do once I graduate? So you might know about the post-study work visa. This is called the graduate visa as well. So you're coming here on a student visa, but once that expires, once you finish your course, you can apply for this after the 1st of January 2027, and it enables you to stay for 18 more months in the UK if you study a master's, or 3 more years if you studied for a PhD. During that time, you're not required to have a certain job or a certain job with a certain salary. It just really enables you to get a bit more work experience if you wish so. And then at the end of that graduate visa, you can switch to a skilled worker visa if you're offered a suitable job that meets the requirements, the salary threshold, and so on. So this is just a bit about what you can do with a degree you get from the University of Cambridge. Now, I know we're flying through this, but it's a lot of information to cover, and I want to spend a bit more time on some highlights for the application process and the fees, and especially the funding, because you might want to know, you know, this is all great, but how am I going to support my studies? How am I going to finance my studies? So I do have a lot of information about that. If you do have any questions, please put them in the Q&A like Karen was saying, and we'll get to them at the end. So, in terms of the application process, these are the stages. I'm not going to go through every single one in the interest of time because we want to leave more time for questions as well. So I'm only going to focus more on the ones I highlighted in red. But just so you know, in terms of the timeline, it takes about a year to prepare your applications in the UK. So if you want to start studying next October, the application window started this September. So it's the year prior. You apply online. So it's a very straightforward, very easy application form. You just register, fill in some details. It's all through an online portal. So that's quite easy and straightforward. You do need, however, time to prepare certain supporting documents. You'll need references as well. I'm going to tell you about that. You'll need to choose your preference of two colleges as well. And then once you submit the application, you'll have to pay the application fee, which is £85 for masters, £20 for a PhD. Most of the departments might have an interview, but this is usually happening online, so you don't need to worry about having to travel all the way to Cambridge for the interview, and then you'll receive your decision. So it all sounds quite straightforward, simple, but there are some things I do want to highlight for you to be aware of, and especially if you want to be considered for funding. So, starting with choosing your course, the QR code on the screen, and I do hope you're not on your phones. If you are, don't worry. If you have signed up, and I'll put the QR code again at the end, and you have the link in the chat too, you'll receive all of these web links, especially to the course database where you can actually explore the courses we offer. So that's the QR code to the course directory. As I was saying, we have over 300 programs in 6 schools that you can see on the screen. So quite a lot of variety and things you can choose from. Just to mention that if you want to do a research master's or a PhD, you'll have to check whether that specific course you want to apply for asks you to get in touch with a potential supervisor, because if it does, then you will need to do that extra step. If you want to apply for a normal taught master's with the teaching element, so not a research but a taught master's, you don't need to worry about having to find a supervisor beforehand. And it's really important for you to check the qualification equivalencies too. And I'm going to tell you about that in a second. I wanted to tell you about this Discover Cambridge webinar series. This happened in March and it will happen again next year, hopefully, probably in March as well. But the recordings are still available. So if you want to have a look, at specific steps of this application process. And especially if you are applying for a research master's or a PhD and you need to identify and contact a supervisor or write a research proposal, we actually have specific sessions on those, either for STEM, so any science subjects, or for humanities, arts, and social sciences. So this will really help you um, in doing this extra step. But you also have some other sessions, as you can see there on the screen, such as applying for a master's as an international student, or a guide to postgraduate interviews. So even postgraduate funding and finance with a Q&A session too. So you can watch all of these recordings depending on your interest, and you will receive the link to that in the automatic email I set up when you sign up for the form I mentioned in the first slide. So what do you actually need to get in? If you are from Colombia and you have Colombian qualifications, what do you need? You'll see, depending on the course you want to apply for, you will see that they require either a 2-1 UK degree, that's a minimum. Some courses might require a high 2-1, and some courses might require a first class degree in the UK or equivalent. So, what is this equivalent? If the course asks you for a 2-1 or equivalent, the equivalent for Colombia will be a grade of 4 out of 5 in your licenciatura. If it asks for a high 2-1, the equivalent will be a 4.3 out of 5 as an overall promedio mark in your undergraduate degree, in your bachelor's degree from Colombia. And then if it requires a first, you need a 4.5 out of 5. If you want to apply for a PhD and the department asks you to have a master's degree, then you need to have a maestria. That will be the equivalent. In terms of the English language requirements, you will need this, and not just for Cambridge, for any UK university you want to apply for, you will need an English language test. I'm not sure if any of you want to apply for Master of Law or Corporate Law. If you need to apply for these, you must have the English language test when you submit your application. If you want to apply to any other subject apart from Master of Law or Master of Corporate Law, you don't need to have your English test exactly when you apply, but you will be expected to send the English test by July, end of July, depending. That deadline can vary, but it's usually by July the year you plan to start studying your degree. So if you want to start studying next October, let's say you apply now to start studying next October, you don't have an English test now, but you must send it by July next year. And again, this depends on the course you want to apply for. If you want to apply for law, the requirements might be higher in terms of your English language. If you apply for engineering, the requirements might be lower. So that really depends on the course. It usually asks you for an IELTS with 7.5 overall, or equivalent test with specific minimum requirements for individual components as well. And the English exams that you have, they must be sat within 24 months, so 2 years prior to the course start date. So if you take an exam now, you can use it just for 2 years, basically. Otherwise, it will expire after those 2 years. So I hope this is clear, but if you do have any questions, please put them in the Q&A and we'll get back to them at the end. Now, in terms of the second stage of the application process, again, this is very important and I want to highlight this because probably most of you might want to apply for funding or scholarships at the University of Cambridge, and this is really critical. So we have two deadlines here at Cambridge. We have one deadline, which is the course deadline, and then we have one deadline, which is the funding deadline. And this funding deadline can be either early December, so for this year is 2nd of December, very soon, or early January. For this intake, it will be 7th of January, but that can change year on year. It's usually early December, early January. The specific date can change. And why is this important? If you want to be considered for funding at the University of Cambridge, you must apply by the funding deadline. If you apply after the funding deadline, you won't be considered for all the internal funding available at Cambridge. So this is really critical and really important. Let's say you have the money to pay for everything yourself. You don't need funding, you don't need a scholarship. Still, your course might have a deadline of next year in February, let's say, but it could close sooner if they receive enough applications. So again, I highlight how important it is to apply early, research and apply as early as possible, and definitely by the funding deadline of your course. You have to submit a fully completed application by that funding deadline, and that includes the two references I'm going to tell you about too. So it's important for your referees to know this and to prepare your references in advance and to submit them by the funding deadline for you to be considered for funding. So this is really important. And I have here a video. I hope you can see it. This is the course database. It works like a search engine, right? So you can just type in whatever you're interested in. Let's say development, search, you can see the courses that cover that. Select the course you might be interested in, like development studies. You can read about the course in your own time, the overview, learning outcomes, modes of teaching, assessment. You can read that in your own time. The tab on requirements is really important because it says you need a high 2-1. So remember how much that means for Colombian equivalent. Then you have the language requirement there as well. It tells you what you need. You have links to the exact department in case you have questions. And then it says applications open in September. The deadline is in February. However, the course funding deadline is 2nd of December. So applications open September this year, deadline for the course February next year, but the course funding deadline December this year. So if you want to apply for this specific course, for example, you must send your application by 2nd of December to be considered for funding. And this is how you can find that information in the course database depending on the course you are in. Finally, the references and other supporting documents. Like I was saying, you will need to nominate some referees. You need 2 referees. This can be either academic or professional, depending on when you left higher education. And your referees will be asked 3 questions, and they need to provide up to 1,000 word reference. In that QR code there, you can scan that, and it gets you to a page where we advise your referees how they should write their reference. And this is important. So if you are planning to apply this year and you still don't have the references, I would advise you to get in touch with your referees, send them that web page so that they know what they need to complete, and make sure you get that reference by the funding deadline. You can also track the status of the references to see whether the university received them or not in the applicant portal, in the online portal. This is also important in the reference, is important for those 3 questions to be answered, because they can also use that information when you are considered for funding. Usually departments get all the applications, they look at them and the references, and then they rank applicants depending on how strong their application is and how good the references are. So it's really important for you to have a really good application and a good reference to be ranked higher, hence having more chances to get the internal funding that we have here at the University of Cambridge. So I hope that's useful. I don't want to tell you too many details, but I think these are the most important details you must know at this stage in terms of the application process. In terms of fees and funding, I want to spend a bit more time on this because this is really important. We do have loads of scholarships here at the University of Cambridge that students don't know about. So I'm very excited to be able to tell you about these. And let me know if you have any questions in the Q&A. I can see we already received some questions. We'll take those after we finish the presentation. So you saw a bit about the postgraduate study in the UK, about Cambridge as a city, what's different. You saw the entry requirements, so what you actually need to be accepted at Cambridge. You saw the application process for masters or PhDs. Now, how much does it cost? And how can you cover that? So the answer to how much does it cost, of course, it's a lot. And I think we all know this. We actually, in this QR code here, we put together a tool that tells you exactly for the course you want to apply for. It tells you exactly how much the tuition fees are and how much the living costs are. And it gives you a total, like an annual total in terms of the cost you should expect. So I gave you an example here. I don't know, let's say you want to do a Master's of Law, make sure you select the fee status as overseas. Being from Colombia, you will be overseas students, and it tells you how much the tuition fees are, and then how much the living expenses are for 1 year and the total. Likewise, for the PhD in engineering, again, selecting fee status as overseas, and again, it gives you an annual commitment that you need to be aware of. Now, how can you fund your master's or your PhD at the University of Cambridge? I thought this statistics was really interesting because in 2024, quite a high percentage of our new PhD students got full funding. That 70% of new PhD students got full funding, and almost a quarter of our new master students also got full funding awards to cover the cost of their programs. So that's quite an encouraging statistics, I would say. And that's why I want to tell you about all the opportunities we have here at Cambridge that you might not know about. We have something called Cambridge Trust, and they award around 500 scholarships annually um, across a variety of programs and nationalities. Um, and they support in total about almost 1,400 students each year. So that's quite a high number. Apart from the Cambridge Trust, remember I said we have 31 colleges. Some of these colleges can have their own international funding. Um, Departments can have their own funding as well. So you can have a look at these. Most are listed in the funding search that I'm going to show you in the next slide. But you can also check individual websites for colleges or departments. We also have external scholarships like Chevening. I'm sure you probably heard of it. And then UKRI funding. So these are for those PhD programs I was mentioning. There might be some funding from research councils in the UK available for international students. So another thing I want to highlight quickly here, as with the application process for funding, you also need to start the research early and apply for all the funding you're eligible for. So that's not just, I'm just applying to this and hoping for the best. Apply to that, but apply to other funding too. So, of course, you can consider funding from your own country, like COLFUTURO, which is an amazing opportunity. And like I said, you can still apply for that for Cambridge. Even if we don't have a partnership, you can still get funding from COLFUTURO to come at Cambridge. There is external funding. There are our own internal scholarships, the Cambridge Trust, the colleges, the departments. So apply to everything you're eligible for, not just one. And it's very important in that online applicant portal to tick, yes, I wish to apply for university funding. That's really important. Because that will automatically consider you for all the funding we have available. Some funding might ask you for additional questions or for you to write additional stuff in the portal. Some might ask you to just say, yes, I wish to be considered, and then you're automatically considered and you don't need to submit any other essays or answers to questions. So there's a mix of all of this, but it's important for you to know what their eligibility criteria is and what their assessment criteria is to make sure you deliver that. If you're asked to write a statement about why you want that scholarship, you know what you're looking for in that statement because you check the assessment criteria, right? So it's really important for you to tailor your application to the scholarship you are applying for or scholarships. And it's really important for you to also seek guidance from university advisors, current students, or alumni who have successfully secured some scholarships. You can easily find them on LinkedIn, through alumni networks, and so on. And I always tell students to not be discouraged if you're unsuccessful in 1 year. I know a lot of students who got into Cambridge 1 year and they didn't get funding, so they couldn't come. And then the second year they get in, but didn't get funding, they couldn't come. The third year they apply again, they get in and they get the funding too. So it's a lot about that sort of resilience and to not be discouraged because there are a lot of brilliant students like yourselves and not that many scholarships for everybody, basically. Right, so this is the funding search I was mentioning. You'll have a link to this in the email that you'll receive if you sign up to the form I was mentioning at the beginning. And you can just filter, refine your search depending on what you're looking for. You're looking for a master's or a PhD. You can even put your nationality there or not. It's up to you. And you can see how many results come up. Quite a lot, 282, if you put both Colombia as both nationality and resident. Of course, not all of these 282 are just for Colombian students. They can be for international students in general, so they can be very competitive, but that doesn't mean you should not look into it and you shouldn't apply. And you might have seen already in there the Gates Cambridge Scholarship. This is a flagship scholarship we have here at the University of Cambridge. It's a full scholarship. You don't need to worry about anything. They award around 75 full cost scholarships per year. The two-thirds are for PhD programs, a third for masters. But you would be eligible to apply for these. And most masters will be eligible apart from some business school masters as well. So you can have a look on their website and PhD courses as well. So to be eligible for this, again, you have to apply by the funding deadline, which is either December or January, depending on the course you apply for. And there is a trick here because in the funding section of the application, if you opt in into Gates Cambridge, if you tick the box that says Gates Cambridge, they will ask you for a Gates specific statement. So in that gate specific statement, they are seeking, they want to see how you meet the selection criteria listed there. So apart from your promedio overall grade in your bachelor's degree, they want to see why you want to study that course. They want to see your leadership skills, capacity, and they want to see your commitment to improving the lives of others. So make sure you do, in that gate specific statement, you do cover and provide evidence for how you meet that criteria. And also, you will need an additional specific reference. So remember, you needed two references. If you want to apply for Gates, you need a third reference. And that should be specific for the course you apply for and specific to the selection criteria as well. And then this is a final slide about funding. These are other funding examples for Colombian students. I'm sure you might have heard of Chevening, Colombia. This is like an external application portal. You'll have to complete their own application journey process externally, and they actually have a even earlier application window that opens in August and ends in October. However, for Chevening, Colombia, you have to have a minimum of 2 years of full-time work experience after you graduate. So this is something that you need to be aware of. Of course, you know about COLFUTURO. This is an amazing opportunity for you to be able to come and study in the UK. And there are others such as ICETEX or MinCiencias. Again, that their calls might depend on year on year and whether there is funding. There could be scholarships, there could be loans, and sometimes there is co-funding opportunities available with some universities in the UK as well. But I wanted to focus on these other ones that you probably have not heard of, such as Cambridge Trust Masters scholarships and PhD scholarships. You can see that these are awarded for both master's and PhD programs for international students. So have a look at those. We also have the Harding scholarships for PhD programs. They award about 45 a year, and these are full scholarships as well. And just to give you three examples, because like I was mentioning, our colleges can have their own funding. So two of our colleges, Trinity Hall and Trinity College, they both have, for example, funding. Trinity Hall has a funding for a master's in ethics of AI, so up to £52,000. And Trinity College has a master's in law, up to £60,000. These are just examples. There are many more, and it depends on obviously what you want to study, because it could be a college that has a full scholarship or partial scholarship, or it could be a department, or it could be Cambridge Trust. So there are lots of resources for you to have a look at. And finally, I'll leave you with this slide here about more resources. Again, you'll receive all of these links if you sign up to that form I was mentioning. So we have the website. You can contact the departments with any course-related queries. We actually have a huge database of frequently asked questions that have already been answered. So actually, I do encourage you to have a look there first, because maybe your question has already been answered. And we have a lot of other resources like the recordings I was showing you at the beginning, the Discover Cambridge recordings. We just had the virtual postgraduate open days in November. And these had useful sessions, including the funding sections. Um, You can even talk with current students on Unibody platform. You can reach out even to the Colombian Society on Instagram, for example, if you want to see what sort of events they've been doing or if you want to ask questions. And you have our international student recruitment and marketing team email there as well in case you have any other questions that you couldn't find the answer to. And the QR code will take you to a newsletter, to the postgraduate newsletter. And I think that's the easiest way to kind of get updates from us and be reminded of certain deadlines and things you need to be aware of. So I'm going to leave it there. I put the QR code here again for you to be able to sign up and receive all of these links I was mentioning. Or if you're on your phone, you have the link in the chat or on the screen as well. And I think we'll turn now to questions. I know we have some questions there, so I'm very happy to go through them. I don't know, Karen, if you want to have a look at that, or maybe I'll have a look as well. I know some of them are in Spanish.
Bueno, Ana Maria, thank you so much for all the information that you give us today. Yes, we have some questions for you. So, we're going to start. Well, the first question says, thank you, Ana Maria. If I want to apply for a PhD, should I submit two applications, one for program acceptance and another for scholarship?
So when you apply for a PhD, obviously you have the first step of seeing whether you need to contact a supervisor and you can do all of that. And then if you find a supervisor who's willing to supervise you, you can proceed to do the online application form. When you do the online application form, the funding section, there is a section just for funding within your application. So there is not a separate form that you must fill in. That funding application is within your course application. So that's where you'll select whether you wish to be considered for funding, and then you have the option to opt into some of the funding you're eligible for. You can opt into all of them, but again, check the eligibility criteria, check in advance whether you need to do something in addition. Like I was saying, for Gates Cambridge, you need to write an additional statement, you need to have a third reference. So don't leave that until the day before the deadline in case you'll need to do some extra things. If you want to apply for some external funding, like Chevening, I know Chevening is just for masters, but COLFUTURO, I think COLFUTURO gives you funding for both masters and the PhD. Obviously, you need to follow that external funding provider own timeline and own processes and own forms, right? Because for COLFUTURO, it's something separate. So that's what you need to be aware of. If it's just for the internal funding and all the funding we have at Cambridge, like Gates, Cambridge Trust, and so on, all of that is within one form. If it's for an external thing, you might need to do an external application form just for the funding. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's perfect, Ana Maria. Thank you so much. Okay, the next question is regarding the IELTS requirement. Does the program accept both the in-person IELTS test and the IELTS online version? If both are accepted, are there differences in minimum score requirements?
I'm not sure about the IELTS online version. I haven't heard of it until now. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to send you the exact. Well, you'll receive this in the automatic email if you sign up to that. If you scan the QR code and sign up to the form, you'll receive this. But I'm going to put it in the chat as well. I'll send you the website for the English requirements for Cambridge for postgraduate programs because you can see there exactly what we accept. So for English, it does say you'll need an IELTS academic or IELTS for UKVI academic. It also says that they accept the IELTS online. So it's the first time I've seen this. So if you do take that, they accept it. It doesn't look like there will be different entry requirements because they treat it as the same test. But the best way to check this will be to go to the course database and to check the English language requirements in the entry requirements tab, like I was showing you in that video. So this is the link,
Thank you so much.
English
Yeah.
language test. Yeah.
Yes, we'll receive that. Perfect. Thank you so much. Well, Michelle says, I am interested in applying to the Master in Finance program and would appreciate clarification on a few points. The first one is there a minimum GMAT score or recommended range for admission? And how much work experience is required? Is 1 year or only internship experience sufficient or enough, or do you prefer at least 2 years? Given that my experience is mainly an internship, would you advise applying now or gaining more experience first?
Those are all great questions. And I think they are best directed at the actual Department of Finance. But before contacting them, I would encourage you to read about the degree. I just put it in the chat there, just to read about the Master of Finance, because they will tell you that there for entry requirements and how to apply, they will tell you what they're expecting from you. Do they expect more work experience? Do they expect the GMAT score or not? If they expect it, with what grade? So all of that information will be there. But if you're not really sure about, your background, or whether if it's not clear from the website what you're looking for, if you want to know a bit more about how much work experience you should have prior to applying, I do encourage you to contact them directly, because they are the ones who will look at your application. They are the ones who can advise you on what they want to see in your application. So I hope that makes sense. I'm sure they'll have like a contact us page as well. I'm trying to find it. I can't find it there, but it's surely on the page. And I even spotted a GMAT or a GRE question for that specific Masters of Finance. It says it's not mandatory, but it can be helpful if if you're not sure you meet the academic level required. So you can have a look at that web.
Perfect, thank you. And Ana Maria, also Michelle asks, when I check the website, it mentions mathematics proficiency. Is this evaluated only through the GMAT or GRE, or is there an additional math assessment?
It's exactly the same answer as before. It's
Okay.
best to contact them, because departments are the ones assessing. We don't see your applications. I'm not assessing your applications. I'm just signposting you and telling you about funding and all of that. But the department is the one who knows what they're looking for in your application. And it's really important for you to check those course database entry requirements and this example for Masters of Finance, because they'll tell you how they're going to assess your mathematics skills.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, Andres says, I have two questions about LLM. In addition to undergraduate GPA for admission, does the university also consider postgraduate GPAs or the student publication history?
So let's say you want to do the LLM, but I'm assuming you might have another master's. So you have to declare you have another master's, and they will be looking at what scores you got in that master's, right? And how you graduated from that master's. So they will be looking at that too. And you have to declare that you have that qualification. In terms of publication history, I'm assuming you might have published or might have had some research published somewhere or some sort of research projects. Definitely mention everything that's related to the program you want to apply for. Is definitely worth mentioning in your personal statement, maybe your reference from your professors or professional references should mention these things as well.
Perfect, Ana Maria. Okay. And Andres also have the question, and it's how I prove that I'm within the top 10%, sorry, of lawyers in my jurisdiction. How I prove to have obtained a professional legal qualification with the equivalent of a first class result.
I'm assuming you might have a qualification or certificate received, so you can definitely send that, or you probably will need to translate it, because everything you need to send to Cambridge, they'll need to see it translated in English by a legal translator, so that it verifies and it certifies it's a correct translation. So you can definitely upload those. Your reference, whoever will give you a reference, they can mention these things. Is there any sort of evidence of you being in the top 10%? Did you get a certificate? Did you get a note? Did you get an award, a recognition? Do you have a evidence for that? Make sure you submit it and translate it in English. Make sure your personal statement will say about it, and make sure your reference will also mention it, like your referee will mention it.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, I'm really interested in applying to the MPhil in geography with shifting funding. However, the program is not listed as an option in the shifting eligible courses. Do you know any reasons for that?
That's odd because I know chevening is applicable to most courses. So that might be a question directly for chevening. But if you don't find an answer, please do send me an email. I'll put the email in the chat here. Send me an email and I'll see what I can find out and how I can help you with that question. I haven't heard that before because I know chevening is I'll just try to put this international admissions inbox. Um, I know chevening is applicable to most courses, and they fund it, they find most courses. So I'm just trying to copy this email address and put it in the chat right now.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay. What alternative do I have if I have a high honors degree and they ask me for a first class? They seem to mention a good GRE won't help either.
So what alternative do I have if the course I want to apply for asks for a first, but I don't meet the requirements of a first? Is
Yeah.
that what they're asking?
Yes.
That can happen. And it's not necessarily something that will deter them from accepting you at the University of Cambridge. However, it does matter a lot what sort of experience you have, right? So, okay, you don't meet the minimum entry requirements for that course. But maybe you have a lot of research experience or great research projects or something great that you've done in your career, or you have lots of professional experience. I don't know. I'm giving you examples. Make sure you do communicate that and put that across in your personal statement. I know some students that got in even if they didn't meet the entry requirements, but they had lots of other experience and relevant experience. So it's also about what else you can bring to the table, right? And how you can communicate that to the assessors. It's not just about, oh, I don't meet the entry requirements, but please still accept me. It's like convincing them that you are great, a good fit for that course, and you have great skills and strengths for that course. So that's really important. And just to make a side note, you know how I was saying about Gates Cambridge? Um, if you sign up to, can you still see my screen? Can you still see the
Yes.
QR code?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
If you sign up to this QR code, you'll receive an automatic email with information. And I also included a recording of the Gates Cambridge student panel we had in June. And I think we have even a Colombian student there who got Gates Cambridge, and she's uh, explaining a bit about her application experience and especially scholarship experience and giving you some advice and tips. And I think I'm not sure if in this panel or another panel I had somebody who said, actually, I didn't meet the requirements. I didn't have the minimum requirements, but they accepted me because I had all of this other stuff. So that's really important for you, how you communicate that other stuff, if you have it.
Perfect. Thank you. And the last question that we have here is regarding letters of recommendation is helpful to have reference from previous volunteer work with a professor at another UK university, not as a formal job, but as a volunteer assistance on an academic research project, or are only recommendations from professors with whom I had a professional relationship?
Um, this is a tricky question because what they would expect to see in a reference letter, they would expect for somebody who knows you more, who has taught you in class, who can comment on your academic ability and how you are as a student, as a researcher, as an academic member, right? That's what they're interested in. They are interested in you academically. And probably if it's a professor who has taught you for 3, 4 years, is probably has more insights into how you are and can comment on your academic ability compared to somebody who you might have worked with very for a very short period of time. That doesn't necessarily mean that if you want to ask them for a reference, it wouldn't be considered. It's just about thinking, who knows you more as a student, who can comment on you more as a student to make sure you have a strong reference, right? You can also contact the department and check that with them and see what their approach is to that and what they expect to receive as a reference. So I think that's also important for you to check.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, Ana Maria Juliana asks, is the LLM a thought program or research program?
It might be a taught program. Let me just double check. I think I need to stop sharing so that I can use this, but it might be a taught program actually. So remember that course database? I'm going to send you um, the link in the chat as well. But I think for those of you watching the recording, like I said, if you sign up to the form I put in the chat, you'll receive the link to the course database there as well. So in that course, if you look for the LLM, uh, it does say on there, so both the LLM and the corporate law program, they are both masters, and they are taught, and they are 9 months full time. So that course database is your main tool. You need to to check it basically for whatever you want to study. That's the first place to go to have a look in terms of entry requirements. And I'll try to share this again, so that you have that there.
Perfect. Well, Ana Maria, we didn't have any more question for you. So thank you again for your disposition, for your time, and for the presentation that you give us today. I really hope to see you in the next similar opportunity for COLFUTURO and for Colombian students.
I hope so too, yes. And I hope to be in Colombia probably around March, fingers crossed. So hopefully I'll be there in person too. But in the meantime, we have a lot of online resources for you, like I was saying and like I was sharing. And we have lots of scholarships opportunities too. So, and we even received some COLFUTURO students this year. Even if we don't have a partnership with COLFUTURO, we still had some students who come here with funding from COLFUTURO, and maybe they find some other funding, either internally at Cambridge or a loan or something else to cover for that gap, basically. So we're very excited to be doing this sort of sessions, and we really thank COLFUTURO and you, Karen, and Joanna, and everybody else. I know you're working hard for this to happen, and for students in Colombia to be supported, and that's something very that I admire very much. So yeah, like I said, there are lots of opportunities for you, and we can't wait to see some of you in Cambridge, hopefully next year and
Yeah.
the year after.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Y a todas las personas que asistieron, también muchas gracias por su interés y por su participación. Muy pronto les estaremos enviando la grabación de esta sesión. Mil gracias y feliz tarde. Thank you, Ana Maria. Have a nice day.
Gracias. Bye.
Chao. Que estés bien.